G'day. It's not so much about sandblaster, it's about the dust extraction. The difference between a expensive, really expensive, and a really cheap sandblaster is a lot to do with dust extraction systems. I cherry built my own, and so I got one of these cheapy bolt together sandblaster boxes, sealed it up. It's pretty good, but the thing is dust extraction is cheap, so obviously you get a lot of work together. So what I did is I hooked up a pickup at the back of the box into a PVC tube, and that runs into a larger tube, okay, a much larger diameter tube. The tube on the back of it comes up about there. We go up to the bigger diameter where all of the airspeed slows down, so that all the larger garnet particles fall down that tube, and all the really fine dust, which is all the stuff that gets blown off the metal or whatever you're sandblasting, that gets pulverised into really fine dust, that gets sucked up into the tube there, and then down again. It comes down the PVC tube here, and then down into this container. This container is just a plastic, industrial plastic barrel surplus with an O-ring seal on the top, so it's reasonably airtight. This tube at the back, the more rigid one from the PVC, has got a tube inside the barrel. This one here at the back. And that tube inside the barrel extends right down to the very bottom of the barrel, underneath the water, which is about a half-third full. And then the tube extends all the way to the bottom, but then part of the bottom has actually got a section of tubing which is like a exhaust perforated tubing you see like inside a muffler. What the little perforated tube does is it diffuses the big air bubble down the bottom into many little air bubbles, so there's more water contacting far more of the surface area of the smaller bubbles, and it picks up a lot more dust, and then the fresh air comes back up the tubing, vacuum cleaner pipe all the way up there to make sure any water doesn't get sucked up just in case, and then back over the top with the other tube, thump, back down to just a hardware vacuum cleaner. You can buy those cheap enough. So we find we don't get any dust that actually makes it to the vacuum cleaner. We don't lose any of the medium inside there. Okay, this is just another local regulator with the water separator here, because the air inlet from that comes straight from the compressor tank. It doesn't go via the regulator on the air compressor. That's the regulator on the air compressor there, but the blaster comes from the side of the tank down there. You just run air directly off that, bypass the regulator on it. So it's a V-twin compressor. Yeah, it's pretty good volume, pretty good. It's basically it doesn't take low pressure and pump it into high pressure. It's got a T-line straight off both outlets on the V. The T-line runs straight to the tank. Okay, so it doesn't run from the outlet of one head lead to the inlet of the other. It's got inlets on both of the V cylinders. So that is, volume-wise, it's both of the volume of those. It's pretty good volume. But what I also do is it's got a fan on the pulley, but I also put another fan right in front of it, and I just run that flat out. So when the compressor cycles, when I shut the air tap, it still gets some cooling across it, because it is a little bit on the underrated side. Well, quite a bit on the underrated side for the sandblaster. So back to the blaster. We're not losing any out of the box, and that large diameter is actually doing its job quite well in separating the larger particles from the finer dust, and the finer dust ends up in that. And when we dry it all out, it's just fine dust, which is whatever gets blown off the thing that's being sandblasted at the time. Every time I've dried it right out and spread it out, try and recover some of the thicker material, it's just, there's none there. It's just all of the fine dust. And the fine dust is the stuff that actually gets blown off the metal that you're actually sandblasting. Whereas the heavier garnet, there's bits break off, obviously. That and the other finer dust gets separated quite well by that larger diameter. Yeah, it's not that heavy, but basically I just undo the coupling there at the top, and then undo that one and just slide it off the bottom, and then roll the barrel out and take the lid off, and then dump the shit out, the sludge out, and give it a hose out and put some water back in, screw the lid on, and she's good to go for another year or two. So that's an alternative homemade dust separator. So if you make something like that, I can assure you it will do the job. And the Sandblaster box is just the other side of it. Aside from the dust extraction, there's not a whole lot to it. So, you know, you can make one out of sheet metal, or you can buy the flat pack ones like this one was. Not hard to bolt together. We just used a lot of sealant inside there to seal it all up, and just put the airline into there, connected him up. Air induction from the fresh air coming in. That's where the dust gets sucked up behind that plate, and then the heavier stuff falls back down into the heap in the pile. This is you just move this around the box to pick up when it all builds up in the corners. You can shove the tube there. The trigger, it's the cheapy one, but took the trigger out of there because that pin gets jammed and frigged up. So instead of having a trigger at this end, we actually just have a foot switch, which is just a gate valve, air gate valve, quarter each end, and that turns it on and off. So yeah, the actual Sandblaster box itself, it's got a V in the bottom to put the stuff in, is not expensive at all, and the rest of it we just cut that out so we can actually put we just tape a new piece of acrylic in there. We've got a whole sheet of that, we just cut bits off when we need it, so we get a clear view. It's not too bad at the moment, but yeah, it does wear. But aside from the box itself, a little bit of lighting in there. It's got the glovey things to seal up. The rest of it is just PVC tubing and a couple of vacuum cleaner extension hoses. You want to use this hose because it's got spirals in it, so the hose doesn't suck shut. Yeah, that's why I don't just use some plastic thin hose. So it's easier just to use the actual vacuum cleaner hoses. So you can get a couple of those to run up the thing, and yeah, that's just more or less screwed. A couple of screws and a couple of zip ties up there to hold it up, and it's all good. So yeah, that's a cheap way to set up a Sandblaster and deal with the dust, and good to go. So, hope that was useful. And the other thing is, when we originally do it, we used to have to wear like a face mask because of the dust around, but there's no dust that actually comes out of this box. It all gets sucked away, so it works really well, and you don't have to wear a sweaty face mask. You can just wear earphones and blast away. So, there you go. Yeah, that'll do for tonight. Hooroo!